Hi all. Right, we've been to the dyno twice and walked away from it within half an hour of running the car. So we've had a bit of a lack of oil pressure issue, shall we say. Now, I'm going to go through the explanation why. Hopefully this might be useful to other people. There's a product which I'm not that keen on, and it could have easily killed my engine. Luckily, we were a little concerned about it and pulled out of the dyno sessions, both of them, pretty early. So just for note, we have a beautiful billet dry sump and billet oil pump and de-aeration unit here. So basically splits the air and oil. This is not the problem. This was great. The gentleman at Daily Engineering, Bill, do a massive thumbs up to. Has been super helpful. I spoke to him 2 or 3 times on the phone and via email, and he's been nothing but awesome. So thank you, Bill, no end. Now, we weren't sure what the problem was. Bill went through the engine with us and the spec of the engine. Initially, we were just looking at oil pressure, because obviously that's the information I had at the time. And we basically said, oh, maybe because this has under piston oil squirting, and it's an earlier system that doesn't have a check valve, even those under piston oil squirters were squirting out at tick over. Apparently the LS9 versions of the same squirters doesn't open till 40 psi. We thought that might be the problem. It has a mechanical cam, not a hydraulic. That tends to bleed some pressure. So we thought maybe we need to upgrade the pump. So basically what we did is we removed the dry sump pump, and there's gears in here. Now, the previous version I had a spacer in and slightly shorter gears. So we basically removed the spacer and bought longer gears. Actually, I can show you that, Clive. Hang on a second, we walk over here, I'll show you the actual gears removed. There we go. So this was the original gears in the pump. And this aluminium piece at the bottom, obviously, is just a spacer. So what we did is we put some longer gears in there that didn't need a spacer, so they were all the way down to the bottom there. So they were, I don't know, maybe 7-8% longer. At the same time, what we also did, we took off this big gear here, which drives the pump. We put a slightly smaller one on. So now these gears are driven at the same RPM as the crank. Previously, they were 20% underdriven. So if you think about that, we went from 80 to 100. So we basically went up by 25% speed on the pump. So bigger gears, faster pump. We thought that might cure it. So I was quite happy, started it back up again, got the water warm. I thought everything's okay, fine. Took it back to the dyno, booked another bloody dyno session, and everything seemed okay. Started doing just some low and mid-table tuning, just to try and break the motor in, got to put some load in the rings. And then we noticed after the first couple of, not even pulls, basically just sitting under, obviously it's bolted directly to a hub dyno, so we can hold it at whatever RPM we want, and then just read what torque figures it's producing. At 4,000 RPM, we were pulling about 40 psi of oil pressure, and we did about a 10 or 15 minute pull, just sort of filling in the table and getting the V tables filled in. We came back to tick over after that short run, and the oil pressure just went down to about 15 psi, at which point then I just killed it again. So this is 2 dyno days we've kind of ruined, or because of my choices, shall we say. So this time, spoke to our friend Bill again, and he recommended that I basically jury rig a little flow meter in here. So this has total flow numbers there. Actually, we just reset that. This smaller figure at the bottom here is gallons per minute. Now, Bill gave me the information that pretty much the pump we've got should be able to flow 16 gallons a minute at higher RPM. At lower RPM, we should still be getting anywhere from sort of 5 gallons a minute up. And we took, basically added this little bit of extra hose to the engine. This is the original hose that went straight to the engine. Put the flow meter in, and we were not getting the flow to the motor. So Initially, we thought maybe there was a leak inside the engine. Maybe somewhere there's a split gallery or a plug that wasn't there. You know, we even took out the where the oil fitting goes into the block there through an endoscope up the gallery, and I noticed that all three of the NPT plugs that should be in the motor were there, so I could see they were okay. The possibility of taking the engine and stripping the engine down to bare bones and checking everything was quite high at that time. But once we realized the flow numbers into the engine weren't high enough, then really it wasn't a loss of pressure inside the motor. It was literally we weren't giving in enough supply. So fitting a flow meter here was Bill's idea. Awesome. We got a perfect, and these aren't particularly that expensive. This is less than $100, even with the two fittings from Amazon. So pretty cheap and simple sort of device. So the pump was obviously giving all the flow we needed, or we hoped. But what turns out to be the remote oil filter housing, this now is a Moroso unit, and it isn't fancy. It's just basically a housing. So there's one pipe in and one pipe back out. That's pretty simple. We've completely removed the oil cooler at the moment because I just wanted to check the flow numbers without a cooler and without a thermostat, and we've fitted that. So the offending article, which has caused me a few sleepless nights, is this unit here. So this is a, hate to call them out, but it's caused me a lot of stress. This is a MOCAL unit, so MOCAL, and you see there's 4 pipes on here, and if we look down the oil out section, you can see basically the thermostat. So pretty much oil comes in here from the pump, goes to the outside of the filter, comes back out through the oil filter itself, through the center of there, and then basically, depending on this temperature, it'll either go direct, which way is those two? It'll either go direct to the oil cooler and then return back, and then come to the motor. So we've got an in, out to cooler, return from cooler, and then out to the motor. Unfortunately, this unit is quite restrictive. As you can probably see in there, it's not particularly the best. And this port here isn't exactly very big either. I didn't think that would be a problem. It came with 22mm threaded units, which could easily get the correct size AN12s and not be restrictive. So these ports are there, but this has caused a massive flow restriction. So our pump was fine, but this was killing the oil flow, which pissed me off, would say would be the mild thing. We also, by the way, we pulled the oil filter out from both dyno sessions and checked if there's any material in there we didn't like, and apart from the obviously initial wearing and breaking of the barrels, which tends to leave a little sort of black soot in there, it's pretty we're okay. So what we've done now, where's the bloody torch, Clive? Oh, it's on the side. Illuminated makes things a lot easier. So now we have a Moroso unit in there that's basically a lot higher flow. Nobody states flow numbers when you actually look at these products. You just kind of like, you're almost guessing in some respects. But we had to make a new bracket for it. The bracket itself was incompatible with the Moroso unit. We've also got a slightly bigger diameter filter, just because, well, change things, you might have to change everything. We now also added, just for testing purposes, there's this -4 line here, which you can just about see up there, comes out the top of the unit. So we now have oil flow to the motor. We also have on the top, we have a mechanical gauge for the oil pressure that comes out the top of the motor. So that's a normal place you measure pressure. We also have oil pressure that comes from the post filter. So I've sort of like got pre and post engine oil pressure. So if you give me 2 seconds while I lower this down. Luckily it goes down faster than it comes up. And here we go. Okay, so this is all sort of temporary, just for set purposes. This sensor block now, we've run the oil pressure line up to here. So this gauge here has a mechanical gauge to oil pressure. That's the fitting we've got, and that basically runs the electronic sensor for the ECU. And then this is a sort of tie wrapped up temporary, just to have a look. We have oil pressure before the motor as well as after. So just to try and diagnose what my problems were. Either way around. Flow numbers previously, about 4,000 RPM. The flow meter was saying we had about 4 to 4.5 gallons a minute of oil flow into the engine. Now, according to Bill the expert, because he is, we should have been a lot higher than that, almost double, if not more than double that flow numbers. So without the flow, obviously you're never going to get the pressure. And that's at 4,000 RPM, which is a little worrying. So, and obviously right now at tick over, that's going to drop. I think tick over, I think it was 2.5 gallons a minute. It might have been 3, I can't remember now, it's been a while. Either way around, once we changed this Moroso, and we swapped out that Mocal unit and put the Moroso unit in, we now have at 3,500 RPM, so it's 1,000 RPM less than we were running it before, because it's awkward to try and hold RPM. This thing buzzes so bloody quickly at the moment. It's kind of awkward trying to get a throttle angle just to idle it at 3,500. So we're roughly 3,500. My daughter was in holding it while I was underneath the car on the lift. We had 9 gallons a minute. So I had double the oil flow at 1,000 RPM less than we were previously. That's how much of a difference. So we're in excess of double the oil flow at the same RPM. And at tick over, instead of 2.5 gallons a minute, I was closer to sort of 4.5 gallons a minute. So that's obviously where my oil pressure issues were coming from. Frustrating, because I was very close until Bill told me to put the flow meter in, pulling the motor completely out and stripping it just to make sure. How on earth I would have figured that out, I don't really know. Try and figure out where we had what I thought was a massive oil leak inside the engine. Turns out the engine is fine. It was all to do with the delivery. So yeah, again, I know I'm probably saying this 4 times, but massive thank you to Bill. He was quoting me flow numbers and pressure loss numbers inside the engine. We literally knew every, what journal at 2.5 thou clearance would produce X amount of oil loss, times that by 5, times that by the big ends, the turbos, everything else. And he went through the flow numbers of every single thing in the engine that basically would use oil, and that would basically cause how much flow we needed for that particular item. So we went through everything. Cam journals, it's nuts. The guy's super. He just knows the oil supply system. Yeah, I'm so happy. It was nuts. You probably can tell. We have discovered a few things. The oil squirters that cool the pistons, so there's basically oil that squirts directly to the bottom of the pistons. They don't have check valves in them. This is an early version of the RHS block, and the squirters they supplied basically will squirt all the time. So on tick over, they're already losing oil pressure. So there is LS9 versions of these particular squirters that have a little check valve in them that basically will not operate until they're at least at 40 psi. So basically, as the engine RPM goes up, oil pressure will rise slightly, and then basically only then will it come off. So if you're round down at tick over, so you're running at 1,000 RPM, your oil pressure drops below 40 psi, it stops working. So you don't need piston cooling at tick over. So they're great units. That's not what I thought was in the motor. So basically, we're going to swap those out when we pull the sump, which we are going to have to at least one more time. We're going to fit those. Also now, due to the fact that we have massive amounts of oil pressure, so basically at cold, at 2.5 to 3,000 RPM, we've got 110 psi oil pressure now, which warms my heart. But that cold oil pressure isn't going to do the turbos any favour. So the turbos themselves, we've now bought basically turbos. Let's try and get the shade out. These are Turbo Smart oil pressure regulators. So basically, you fit them in line with the oil lines to the turbos, and it stops excessive pressure getting to the mechanical seals on the turbo. That kind of pressure apparently will destroy the mechanical seals in there, and then your turbos will just start burning, or as will the kind of blue smoke out the back of the exhaust. So we've got a pair of these to fit yet, so that's going to have to be upgraded before the dyno. I've got some more dash AN line coming. Those have got to be done, so all squirters have got to be changed out. The car presently isn't running a thermostat at all, and the oil cooler itself is disconnected. But that's only just as if nothing else at the moment, we're just checking flow numbers. So what I'm going to do now is I've got I think it's called an improved performance oil thermostat that goes in line between the cooler and the engine. And when you look down the barrel of those things, there's literally no restriction. The thermostat isn't in the way at all. So whereas you look in here, like I was saying before, you can see that spring in the thermostat. This remote thermostat, which obviously isn't to do with the filter housing at all, you can see right through it. So it's literally got like a 3/4 of an inch hole virtually all the way through. So that shouldn't create any restriction. So we've got one of them coming. So we're still in test mode at this point. So we'll fit that thermostat, we'll re-engage this oil cooler and put that in line, and we'll see if the flow numbers alter. So as long as they don't drop massively, there's going to be some resistance, because obviously going through the cooler itself is always resistant, and the thermostat bypass as such. So once the oil gets warm, we'll see if the cooler tends to add some flow restriction. But we'll do that before the dyno to make sure that everything's okay. So when I take it back to the third dyno day, I can let the tuner have all day on the damn thing, and then basically we'll get this up and going. So yeah, I threw the Turbo Smart sticker on there. Daughter's not unimpressed already. But that's, yeah, it's been really kind of a roller coaster ride. All pressure is obviously something that you always want, and seeing it sort of just disappear off the bloody dial and go down to like 15 psi tick over, that scared the bejesus out of me, especially knowing the amount of money they've got into this engine. So yes, the body's sort of slightly lifted off because we've had to get at the oil tank. We did inspect the oil tank. We removed the top plate of here, and I can get my arm all the way down in there. So we've cleaned all the oil tank out, because so that you do get, from when the rings are breaking the barrels in, you'll kind of get like a cast iron kind of black powder or whatever you call it. It's just breaking it in. We've wiped and cleaned all that out. It's obviously had an oil change between the first and second dyno, because I just basically wanted to make sure everything was okay. So it had like another 18 litres of fresh oil for the second dyno. I pulled that out, cleaned the tank again, but we then put that oil back in for the moment. And I did put it in a brand clean bucket that I cleaned out. But I didn't want to do 3 bloody oil fills just for the braking. And obviously once we've put a bit more time in the dyno, on the first dyno day, I'll probably at the end of that day dump the oil out and then put the synthetic stuff in, because the rings should be broken in by then. But we were questioning everything, you know, was it something to do with the suction pipe from the oil pump to here, because that can collapse if you don't get the right pipe. But we use an XRP hose for this one. It's a convoluted hose, so basically it can't crush. You could almost stand on that thing and it doesn't crush. We did a little video inside the oil tank just to make sure it was okay. And what's the gap between the pickup pipe? Because between here and obviously inside of the tank, I've put a 1-inch diameter pipe, and I sort of curled it down so it pulls the oil from the base of the tank. That was okay. We had about 14 millimeters roughly between the bottom of the pickup tank and the bottom of the tank. So that's okay. It's a 1-inch pipe, so I can literally almost stick my thumb up the damn thing. That was okay. We were just kept trying to cross off stuff, what to try and diagnose what the bloody issue was. So push come to shove, it was the bloody filter housing, which I would not have thought of. But unfortunately, to get to that, it was like, yeah, body off again. But finally, some good news. We found it, so I'm breathing a little bit easier. For the sake of like $100 for an oil flow meter to find this out, it was well worth the money. And a couple of mechanical gauges. Yes, so I would not suggest or would not ever recommend using a Mocal remote oil filter housing with inbuilt thermostat. Seems it's just too damn restrictive. So there we go. So at the end of the day, the next week, I'm probably just going to be buttoning this up, getting it back ready for the dyno, and then we'll get hold of my dyno guy and book another sessions. And then maybe finally we get to the point where the car is getting close to the road. Also, I'm not going to show you the actual number, but this is an Alberta registered VIN now. We've had the inspector round. He's quite happy with the car, and we've basically been issued a VIN number. So we now are just a quick out of province inspection away from being road legal. So as much as it's absolutely hammering it down, rain outside, and it is kind of June, but hopefully by July sometime we shall be on the road. Okay, long-winded video, but it's been a long few weeks trying to figure out what this issue was, but now we've got a solution. At least there's a path forward, and the engine's still good. Okay, speak to you all soon.